Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You know, one of the things as a pro fisherman, yeah, we gotta catch fish, but then there's the days that we don't wanna catch fish. We don't wanna hook them. And that is probably the biggest difference. I'm not gonna say the biggest, but one of the biggest differences between, you know, pro guys and maybe weekend tournament guys is that we don't have any problems going through our practice day never boating a fish. And with that said, you know, if you were to want to take your tournament fishing to the next level, you have to get very good at knowing when you got a bite, but yet not catching them. So I'm going to dive off into that today. I'm going to show you how I cover my hooks, how I change my baits to make sure I never catch one in practice. Because if you think about it, in practice, not only if you catch that fish, it's going to be a fish that's educated. It's going to be a lot harder to get to bite come tournament day. But then you have competitors always around you when you're out there practicing, whether it's a kayak tournament or a 20 boat local club tournament or a 150 boat weekend tournament. There's always people watching. And if you boat a fish, no matter how far away it is, you can see that stuff. And if you will use some of these techniques of covering your hooks, changing your hooks, I'm going to show you the things to do. It can take your tournament fishing up a whole nother notch. And in reality, if you think about it, just catching one more 3-pounder or one more 4-pounder that you shook off in practice can be huge. I mean, just a huge, huge difference. So I'm gonna show you guys what I do. So like on my plastic baits, on my flipping baits, I just tie a screw lock like that right there. It's got everything on it. Everything acts the same. I can do anything with this bait. I can pull on those fish. You can practically pull a fish plumb to the surface. I just screw that bait right up on there like so. Now that bait, I mean, it's not coming off. It's going to be there all day long. You can pull, pull, pull. You can see that fish come up to the surface. It doesn't change the action, the effect, anything of this bait at all by adding that screw lock. That will also work on a plastic worm. That'll work on anything you're going to Texas rig and hop on the bottom is using a screw lock. That's how we combat that for not catching a bass. I carry different size screw locks. You know, I've got that bigger one for bigger flipping baits, but then I also carry little ones like this, and these work great. There's no better way when you're out there, you know, casting a drop shot or whatever it is with your drop shot. Carry some little ones so you can just screw your worm right there on your line, and you're not going to hook those bass either. It works really well. You can do it wacky style. I can hook it right in the middle. If you're drop shotting wacky style, I can hook it in the end of the worm. It works great on a drop shot. Also, if you ever got to cast a wacky rig around, use one of these screw locks. Use a bigger one, like I did flipping for when you're casting, practicing with the wacky general or something like that around docks. It's just a great way not to hook those bass. I carry a lot of different sizes of screw locks for the different size baits that I might need. Now, when it gets to your spinner bait, your vibrating jig, to those things, buzz bait, single hook lures, this is what I do. I take some wire, just a roll of 14 gauge wire, and I take my pliers and I'm going to cut around that thing. And then I pull it off like so. So now I have this really stiff piece of plastic sheathing. And obviously in practice, we don't need a trailer hook. So I'm gonna take this trailer hook off this spinner bait. We don't want to catch them. This is all about not catching them. And the thing I love about this sheathing of electrical wire is there is no way you'll catch a bass. And when I cut it long like that, I can push it, get it around that hook bend, and it's gonna sit just like that. So now when a bass, you can pull on him, you can do anything you wanna do, you're not gonna catch that fish. I don't have to cut my hook, I don't have to ruin a bait. You know, the same thing on your vibrating jig. You know, this wire comes in different colors. You know, there's black, there's brown, there's white, chartreuse, well, not chartreuse, there's red. So you can even match your skirt. It has no effect on how the bait runs. So any single hook lure that you have, and you don't have to ruin your lure by cutting the hook. You know, back in the day, I just used to cut my hook, you know, and that way you'd never hook one. But this works wonders. You will not hook a bass. Come tournament day, just be sure you take this off, and it comes right back off. You just pull it and twist it a little bit. It comes right back off. And my spinner bait is as good as new, or my vibrating jig or my buzz bait or whatever it may be is as good as new. Put your trailer hook back on there and you can go to town to catching fish. So it's a really easy fix. You know, and maybe you want to catch a few in practice, but you get around a bunch of boats, you can stick that on. I've got a whole bunch of these cut up in my box, just ready to go when I need to cover my hooks. Just a really quick, easy way not to catch one on your vibrating jig, on your spinner bait, buzz bait, any single hook lure. Now, when you get to your crankbaits, top waters, jerk baits, any of that stuff, I just take, and I've got a set of these hooks in my box, but I just take, and it's gonna take me a minute to do it, I bend all these in. You can't take the hooks off, because as soon as you take the hooks off, the bait is not weighted properly. All your hard baits, they need that weight to work properly. You know, even your walking bait, you know, like a cane walker or a jay walker, or whatever your walking bait is, you know, if you take those hooks off, it just doesn't quite perform the same. So I will bend all of them in just like that. Now you have to bend them. One thing that I've made a mistake is I don't bend them far enough. Now believe it or not, you will catch a bass on that right there. I have done it a gazillion times and they will never come off when you do. So you do have to get that hook point bent all the way in. So I bend it 2 different times. I get it up close to the shank like that, and then I grab the tip and I bend it in a little bit more. That tip has to be next to that shank of that hook to keep it from happening. So by, you know, right there you can see I'm not hooking that at all. You know, that is to me just the biggest difference in getting a few extra bites come tournament day. And you guys know as well as I know, just having 1 or 2 extra fish catches come tournament day can be major steps in the standings, no matter what size tournament it is. So, you know, top waters, jerk baits, lipless cranks, square bills, just bend your hooks in, and you can keep those hooks. Once you take those off, then come back tournament day, just keep a set of bent in hooks in if you don't want to ruin all your hooks, you know. But I'm all the time changing treble hooks. I would change these out, you know, anyway, multiple times through the day. So it's no big deal just to keep some older hooks around, keep them bent in, you know, and use those as your practice space. So in my opinion, in this whole not trying to catch a bass video here that I'm trying to help you with when you're pre-fishing for your tournaments, the hardest one to do is when you have to use like a belly weight or any of the EWG style hooks. So, you know, might want to use an EWG if you're throwing a jerk shad, you know, a fluke or something like that. You might want to be using an EWG if you're throwing a grass pig, you know, something like this. These, in my opinion, are the hardest because, you know, that hook is built to ride right on top of that bait, and that bait needs to run vertical. So if I just use a screw lock and a worm weight, this is going to twist, okay, because the tail is going to make it twist. I have to have that belly at the bottom. So here's what I do. I rig it up like normal, run that screw lock in here. This is just a Berkley Fusion hook, and I'm going to save this in my box for when I need to throw this possibly down at the next tournament when I go. We always talked about rigging those vertical with the seam, you know, go back and watch that video if you hadn't seen it, but it's super, super critical. I'm gonna rig it just like normal. I'm gonna push this on up through. I'm gonna get it all straight. So now, like right there, I'm gonna catch every bass there is. So what I do You can see I had a little run-in with some chartreuse dye having this packed for one of my events. You need to carry a pair of these pliers in your boat, guys. This is just a little side tip. These are Klein's. I've had them for years. The beauty of these pliers is, one, I can cut these hooks, but if you ever get stuck, hook in your hand, a hook in your knee, your leg, these will cut a hook like sliced butter. We all carry needle noses and they all got little bitty dikes, or you can carry dikes. Nothing cuts a hook like these things right here. Nothing. And they're a good pair of pliers. So get you a pair of lineman's pliers is what they're called. You go to a hardware store, lineman pliers, you're not gonna have this chartreuse on them because I spilt it on there, but they will cut a hook way easier than anything else out there. And if you've got one embedded in your leg, I promise you, you want to cut the hook with this, not this. The other great thing these are for, if you ever catch a dogfish, everybody knows a dogfish, a grinnell, a goog, asper, I don't know, people call them all kinds of things. You can whack him on the head with this thing and he'll slow down a little bit, because you know when you flip one of them dogfishes in the boat, he just tears up everything. And I just give him a little tap on the head and he's like, oh, okay, let's calm down. So they're heavy enough pliers that you can just give him a tap on the head. Okay, so what I do is I'm gonna cut that hook right behind the point, the barb, not the point, but the barb. So I get it in those pliers and I cut it, point it down so you don't get an eyeball out. I don't have my Wiley X's on. You can see how easy that cut that hook. So now there's no barb there, but I can still rig my hook. And what I do a lot of times to keep that, now I push that into that plastic and it'll stay a lot longer. So now my bait's still really straight. A fish can crush it, wham, and you can pull on them all you want. And let's say this pulls all through, you know, this pulls all through. There is a little bit of ability there to have a bass hooked for a minute, but as soon as you give him slack, that's gonna come right off. It works really, really well for me. And yeah, it's not perfect. You know, you can still kind of pull on a fish there, but if you cut any more of that hook off, you're gonna have a hard time getting this bait rigged straight, to run straight. So keep that in mind. That's the last thing you want to do, is have a bait that's not going to perform like it will on tournament day. You know, the way I've showed you everything here in covering these hooks, they're all going to perform just as good live, ready, loaded come tournament day. And that's important, you know, to have these just like they're going to perform for you on Saturday morning when all the money's on the line. So these are a few of the things that I do in my career to get more bites come the day that it matters. I don't want to win practice. I don't need to catch fish in practice. It stinks, I know, but try a few of these things and maybe you guys have figured out something that I don't. I'd love to hear a comment from you on that, on how you cover your hooks or how you shake fish off and don't expose those fish come practice days and save them for the tournament. But I appreciate you guys following along, and we'll see you next week. Good fishing.